Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Welcome back, everyone. I am your host, Scott Henderson, and my co-host is Dr. J. We are experienced investors with a huge advantage as we have been able to learn from our family that has well over 100 years of experience in real estate and other alternative investments. Here on Master Your Millions, we seek to share that experience that we've learned and expand our knowledge as we talk to the top leaders in alternative areas of investing. We are super excited for our guest today. Jason, who do we have coming on?
Well, I'm excited too. We have a man that originally from Chico, California, and believe it or not, he went to college and then got a master's. And his undergrad was in health science. His master's was in education and business. And then he got a job teaching high school. He was a high school football coach and a wrestling coach. And at some point, the light went on. So, you know what? I'm going to start a sports equipment business. And he's left his coaching position and built that business, and then he was bought out and he went on to some other areas and had another business very successful. And then he came into a friend that was very successful in the stock market, and he currently, Randy Tate, is the CEO and co-founder of iFlip, which is an AI-driven stock market investing service. Now, I want you to think back a minute, folks, and listen about there were some blockbusters. There used to be 2 or 3 or 4 in almost in every city in the United States. And then along came Netflix. And those stores became obsolete and ghost towns. You can't even find one anywhere that I've seen. I'm telling you that this iFlip business and what they're doing, their service, their investing service, is going to do to the financial world what Netflix did to Blockbuster. So welcome, Randy Tate. We are so thrilled to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks, Scott. I'm really happy to be here.
Cool. So tell us a little bit. I mean, I did a broad stroke of your background. On our podcast, Master Your Millions, it's all about how do you amass millions, how do you keep millions, and how do you pass it on to the next generation. And we've had all kinds of different people with different backgrounds. We've never had anybody in the stock market arena. However, many people come from varied backgrounds, and you've had hasn't been a straight path. It's been back and forth here and there from good fortune to good fortune. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, I still do start with the teaching thing. I'm 53 years old now, and the first 10 years of my professional career I spent teaching high school. It's what I always wanted to do since I was a little kid. I wanted to teach and coach. It's all I cared about. Football, wrestling, that's it. And I accomplished those goals, got to the top of that mountain, and realized there's not really much money there. So that's where my journey started. Everything I've learned from that point forward has prepared me to do what I'm doing now. I often say I was just in an Inspired Success magazine article, and the lady really focused in on this statement. I learned everything I need to know about running a multi-million-dollar company coaching freshman high school football. And what do you mean coaching freshman high school football? I'm like, yeah, coaching freshman high school football. If you can get a group of 14-year-olds to work in unison, you can darn sure do it inside a company. And so, I've had various successes. I've had 2 successful startups that I've exited. I've been in many different industries, from sporting goods, from distribution, sales, marketing. Education is my background. When I left the last company I had actually was semi-acquired by Infusionsoft, big software company. I learned a lot about the SaaS space. That prepared me to be right where I'm at now, which is running a software company that's investing people's money in the stock market and doing to the financial services space, like you said, what Netflix did to Blockbuster.
I love it. Tell us a little bit about who have been key components of your journey. We believe here on our podcast, and we preach in it all the time, that you've got to have a mindset, and you've also got to have the right kind of team. Along your journey, tell us a little bit about a couple of people that have been instrumental in helping you get to where you are.
Yeah, I can give you a few of those. Believe it or not, most of them are coaches. I was a farm kid, grew up on a farm. Everybody in my family either farmed or were in, some form of construction, some form of labor, some form of contracting. That was the world that I grew up in. I'm the first person from my family to go to college. That all goes back to football. It really goes back to my high school football coach, literally just talking to me about going to college. I didn't really want to go to college, but I wanted to be a teacher and I wanted to be in football. Like every 14-year-old, you think you're going to play in the NFL. That wasn't going to happen. Wasn't going to wrestle in the Olympics. However, what it did was it gave me a purpose to keep going. And I paid attention to what they were doing, and I try to emulate them. My high school football coach, Jack Danielson, he's the one that got me to go to college. And then I transitioned that into my wrestling coach in college. My college wrestling coach, Armin Brett, Dr. Armin Brett, he's in the College Wrestling Hall of Fame. He is a very big proponent in that world, but he brought discipline. Do what you say you're going to do. Believe it or not, wrestlers, they skip some meals here and there. It takes discipline to not eat. And those two people on my early days, all the way, they were big influences on me. Then I started just studying people. After I left the teaching field, I started learning about business, being an entrepreneur, big follower of Bob Proctor, worked closely with Bob Proctor for many years inside one of my companies. Him and I worked a little bit together. And then just, various and sundry other folks I've met along the way that have taught me everything that I currently know today, even just osmosis. So it's about spending time with those that you care about. I always throw Laurel a bone. Laurel Langmeyer has done a lot for me. I've learned a ton about functioning businesses and setting them up. And then, of course, I'll always, whenever I give any accolades to humans, my wife, we've been together since 1989, and I'm only 53, so you can do the math. That's a long time. She is the greatest influence in what I've had. She's the one that's always encouraged me when I didn't want to. When I was second guessing myself about starting a sporting goods company, she said, "You should do it. Why wouldn't you? You're young. Go get it. Have fun." And she encouraged it the whole time. So she gets the most accolades of them all.
I love it. Thank you for that. So there's been some serious mentors along the way. Tell us a little bit. At some point, you had to have failed. You had to have crashed and burned. We want to know about some experience in your past where it was like crash and burn. And what were some lessons that you learned from that crash and burn?
Yeah, I try not to dwell on those, but there are a few in there. And the other thing I'll add in there is there's a recovery process. The very first year in our sporting goods company, I was working with a business partner in there who, for lack of a better statement, wanted us to both take more money than we should have taken. So not understanding the cycle of pay that comes from the industry, I didn't know much different. He knew the industry, so I went along with it. We ended up out of money and not being able to pay bills. I didn't know what I was going to do. Like, we can't pay our employees, we can't pay ourselves, and more importantly, we can't pay our vendors. People like Nike want to be paid. And so that was not a good experience. I ended up how did I solve it? I had to take a jump right off of literally my house and take an equity line out on it. Took all the money out of my house and sunk it back into that company, betting on myself that I'd get it done. And luckily I did. We changed our structure. I fixed what we were doing. I put in more hours, and we survived, and we got it to a point where we were able to make a successful transition and sell our company to a publicly traded company. It was lesson learned, though. Always, here's the lesson. The lesson on that failure is always plan with the end in mind. You got to start with the end and reverse engineer everything. If you don't reverse engineer it, you will get to a fork in the road and you'll pick the wrong path. It's just the nature of humans. So That was one of the biggest ones I ever had. I thought we were going to lose the whole thing. Another failure, I'll give you one more, flip related. Flip was, we started this thing in 2017, 18, 19, we're doing great. We're getting ready to expand and grow. In 2020, we're getting ready to turn all the jets on. We're hiring people. I've got capital coming in, and I put the cart before the horse before COVID. So I had hired people. I had a marketing plan. I had spent money that I didn't have yet, but I had an agreement from an investor. And then that investor, for lack of a better reason, fell through. And at the same time, Mr. COVID showed up. So our primary means of generating revenue, me standing on stages, was gone. And that was hard. That was really, really hard. It's hard when you have to enroll the people in your company, in your dream and your vision, and tell them you can't pay them for at least 6 months, maybe a year, and then keep them there. That's hard to look those people in the face every day. They're working their tails off and they're not getting paid. We got through that though. It's like freshman football. You can convince 14-year-olds to go out in 105-degree heat and play football. You should be able to work with people, right? So again, from every failure, Jason, came something good on the other side, but it only came because of perseverance. And the perseverance to just keep going, man. Just got to keep going.
So I got a little
it.
bit of a side tangent, and to drill in a little bit, Randy, like on the first one, when you were going through the business model and trying to figure out what was wrong, did someone step in there? Was it just you going through and learning from YouTube and the University of Google? Or how did you figure out what was wrong?
First of all, there was no Google or YouTube then. There was Google. There was no YouTube. There was no instant answer anywhere. So no, I dug in. One of the things I believe is my strength is I'm really good at finding the easy button on how to get stuff done without it taking forever and 100 iterations. Now I might have to fail first to get there, but Scott, it was digging in. I had to dig in. I spent every weekend. I can remember, because of the way we were paying people, being on a Thanksgiving, because it was a screen print shop also. And we made jerseys and uniforms and stuff like that. My wife and I spent all day Thanksgiving in my shop putting numbers on jerseys because they needed it for the playoff game coming up. And sometimes I keep on my whiteboard behind me, if I don't have my little flip logo up, I keep a big saying up there that says, nobody cares, work harder. And that's kind of the mindset.
Cool. Did you keep the partner on that, or did you guys go separate ways and you buy him out?
We stayed together. And then we sold to the big publicly traded company. We both had jobs there. They forced both of us to stay. He knew the industry well. He was really good at what he did. So we both had good jobs there. We worked as basically consultants, sales consulting in their new division, which was what we were doing. And they just wanted to take it over. And so started another business at that time. I was not going to stay in that industry. I fulfilled my contract and off I went. Another lesson I learned, I'll give you a good one. This is an interesting one, depending on your age. So I don't share this one very often because this one's painful. We got a really good buyout. We got a 10x on our EBITDA. We got to keep all of our inventory, which was about $500,000 worth. We got to also keep all of our receivables, which is another $500,000 worth. And part of the deal that I worked out, because I'm an equity guy, I swing for the fence generally in these kinds of things. We took the majority of our personal compensation for the purchase of our company. We took it in equity in the publicly traded company. It was trading at about $14 a share. Our options would vest in 5 years at $4 a share. Sounds great, right? Company's up and coming, it's going great. Well, you guys probably remember the old market crash kind of deal back in, I think that's 07 or something, 06. As it went down, the company went down. By the time I could vest my shares, they were worth less than my vesting price, and I got nothing out of it. So be careful. But when you're young, that's what you want to do.
Gotcha.
So there you go.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's a side of the coin that not many people see at all. No,
I don't, I don't like to dwell on the negatives and bad things. I like to dwell on what's good and positive.
Yeah,
That
of
is one
course.
thing I've noticed about you, Randy. You are very positive, and I'm even surprised that you have any examples where you've crashed and burned. I asked that question almost expecting you to say, "Well, I haven't had any." It seems like you've been from success to success to success. So let's switch gears a little bit and tell us in your words what iFlip is, and sort of the genesis of the idea and kind of what the state of the art is. I would like our listeners, for the most part, there's been a lot of people in alternative investments, a lot of real estate. We've had several veterans on our show. We've had syndicators, all kinds of things. We've never had anybody that really does investing in the stock market. And most people might not even think that is kind of alternative. However, I want to say it is, given the fact of how you're doing it. Not necessarily the what, but the how. So I know that was a long question there, but go ahead.
Well, so FLIP's an acronym. It's the Financial Learning Information Platform. Financial Learning Information Platform. And what it, literally quite some time ago, 2016, when I met Kelly, I actually realized right then that professional and institutional investors use sophisticated technology, tactics, and different things to protect and grow their investments. I always ask this question, so I'll ask you, Jason. I want to hear what your answer is, and then I'll continue. Do you think J.P. Morgan and BlackRock institute the Kool-Aid they deliver, and invest in the way they make recommendations for people to invest?
No.
Why?
Largely for the fact some of the experiences I've had getting inside of other companies, that's not happening. And plus it's easier to make more money on the lump investorate at one level. However, the big money is made at a different level.
Yeah. And so the technology that these guys use to invest, it's not available to the retail person. It's not available to the millionaire even. When I met Kelly, my business partner, and you guys know Kelly, he laughed at this concept. He's like, you can't, that's something big banks do, billions and billions of dollars. So it wasn't available to you. It wasn't available to me, that kind of technology. So once I understood that, that's when we created iFlip. So we created iFlip to build a simple, very simple to use investment platform that'll consistently outperform the market while protecting you. Protecting your wealth is very, very important. If you can protect someone, we protect their wealth while outperforming the market. Our AI, that's the other thing I want to make sure we understand the difference of. AI is not just an algorithm. Everywhere today you see AI in the financial planning space, it's not. Say that one more time. Everywhere you see AI in the investing space, it's not. It's an algorithm. And an algorithm is very good. And what is an algorithm? Maybe your listeners might not know. An algorithm is simply a mathematical formula that will tell a computer, if this happens, do this. Let me give you the easiest example. You could program an algorithm into your computer that says if Apple goes up $1 after the open of the market, buy it. And if it goes down $1, sell it. Lots of those computers out there that do that. In order for that to change, though, a human who has an opinion has to go change that from $1 to $2 or $1 to 50 cents. They have to change it. AI is also an algorithm that changes itself. A human doesn't interfere. It's all mathematics, and it's all based on a bunch of other algorithms. So the way iFlip works, we have one base set of AIs that can trade, well, actually there's 4, that can trade each individual stock. Each AI is an algorithm that's on, say, Apple. Every night after the market closes, a bunch of algorithms feed new data into that algorithm. All of that data is things like credit card debt, mortgage failures, real estate prices, unemployment, all of the typical financial numbers you see get fed right into that. Now it then decides, based on that information, is it statistically likely over the next 45 days that stock is going to behave in a certain way? And based on that, it will buy it, it will sell it, or it won't do anything. It'll just stay in cash waiting for it. So that's the biggest deal. We are, if you back test through every market crash since 87, we're 24% better on the S&P 500. Last year, we were down last year. It's not a win all the time. I want to make sure people understand that. It's not a win every time. We were down about 4% on average across our smartfolios. The S&P was down, 19, 18, 19, something like that. So, the key idea, Jason, like I said, is just to realize that this volatility is going to be here for a minute.
That's interesting that you call that not a win. Most people would call that a win, that you were only down 4 where everybody else was licking their wounds at, negative 18, 19, 20, or even 30%.
We got to say too that
$17 million. I was say last year we moved to this last few weeks, we're in the process of moving a $17 million account out of Schwab that was down 46% in their best private money managers they could have.
And that's just on the Smartfolio doing the S&P. I mean, I've got one that wasn't down at all. It was net zero.
Yeah, we had net zeros. We had some that were positive as well. We had a couple that were positive. Now they weren't up 20%, but they were. I think we had 2 Smartfolios up between 5 and 10%.
I like it. So this partner that you ran into sounds like a key person as well in the whole scenario. Would you say he's more a mentor? You're a mentor to him? What's the relationship like?
Both. I would say both. He is a true business partner in what we're doing. Kelly comes from the world of Wall Street. Can you hear my dog barking? I'm sorry. He comes from the world of Wall Street, and he's pretty smart. He went to Stanford's physics program when he was 16 years old. Graduated with degrees in statistics, mathematics, and finance, because one's too easy. Also has master's degrees from the University of Chicago in the same years. So yeah, I like to say he's a pretty smart dude. He also was a quant on Wall Street, meaning he managed money for the big institutions, billionaires. When he was at Deutsche Bank, he was the global risk manager managing $6 billion. So that's Kelly. And however, he doesn't have a lot of experience in business. Not has been his world. He's made sure portfolios perform for big money. So I take his genius, because he is the genius behind it, not me. And I'm out sharing it with the world.
Love it. Tell us then, in the event that sitting where, so two things. In the event you could go back and talk to the 14-year-old Randy, what advice would you give that 14-year-old? And then give us a vision of where iFlip is going to be in 5 years.
14, I don't get that question much. What would I tell me? I would want it. My knee jerk to that question is I would tell myself to skip the teaching in the 10 years there and get into the finance industry sooner, learn more about it. Which would be bad advice, because that wouldn't get me where I'm at today. It probably got me a good high paying job where I would be today, but it wouldn't get me into a position to change an industry. I would also, as always, as everybody else does outside of business, I would tell myself to, at 14, spend more time with your immediate family, be nicer to your mom, those kinds of things, of course, because 14-year-olds tend to not be that nice. So I would go with those as well. On where's Flip going to be in 5 years? So Jason, we're we're really intent on disrupting the industry. We truly want to be the Netflix to it. We started out with that intention. And I say this a lot when I speak and I'm talking marketing or sales or business growth, or even to startups. All marketing comes down to a couple of things. You're better, you're easier to use, or you're less expensive. Pick one of those. Every TV commercial you see is about one of those three things. They're either telling you they're better than somebody, they're less expensive to somebody, or they're easier to use. Always. Otherwise, everybody's the same. What's the difference? But to disrupt, you've got to do all three. So we started from the very beginning with, the empowerment message for the individual investor to be able to preserve, protect, and grow their wealth. And to do that, when you think about what we're going to do in 5 years, to do those things, it's not an easy climb. It's not. It's a steep mountain, man. It is a David Goliath kind of deal. The folks like BlackRock have lots of money to invest in marketing, in Facebook ads and Google ads, and go get people's money, and they have influence over companies and things like that. We don't yet. So in 5 years, we'll have $1 billion on our platform. We will force change in the industry in the realm of transparency, because we are easier to use than everybody. We are point and click. It gets no easier to invest than us. We're also going to force them to look at the way they charge, because we are exponentially cheaper. We start with a number and then it scales backwards instead of forward, like it does with institutions and industries. We don't charge an asset under management fee. We charge a flat, transparent subscription. So we're going to change the way people charge. We're going to change the way they invest. And we're going to get this industry into a position where it's completely democratized, and other people will follow us. We understand that. We're not going to be the only game in town, but we will be the game in town. And this will be the way finance is in the future, at least from the wealth creation in the stock market.
Love it. I know that you do a lot of teaching, and I've heard you do a presentation about having money rules, and iFlip fits in there. And however, I want to bring up the whole idea of the infinite banking concept, we talked to a lot of our guests about, and I know that you're a proponent of that. Briefly give us an idea of where you think something like the infinite banking concept fits in, say, a pyramid of investing. Yep. And where iFlip fits. I mean, that people need to know that there's a foundation and
yes,
build upon that. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yep. So, and I talk about infinite banking a lot, and it's a key component. It's actually foundational along with iFlip. I think both of them are the two things that make up the foundation of your investing. I present I present it the way I structure it. Everybody's got their own ideas, but I believe 70 to 80% of your investable assets should be in those two areas. Now, depending on how old you are and what you're doing, what percentage goes in each, that's arguable. But those are the foundational investment pieces of your portfolio to create wealth, because one, they're safe. They're safe. It's a much safer proposition to have your money set up that way. Then as you move up the pyramid, you take your infinite banking, you take your flip, you got your investments there, and now you've got the other money you have. Then you got to start putting rules around it. Things like, how liquid do you need it to be? How, what industry do you want to be in? What type of investment do you want to be active or not active? And then, you start looking at deals. You want to invest in companies. That's the top of the pyramid. Your home runs are at the top. If you're going to, the way I put it is this: if you're someone that's got, I don't know, 50 grand of investable money, rolling it over from a job you just moved, you had a 401k that was over there. Now you have this money that you've self-directed. You've got it. You would not want to take that money and invest it in iFlip, the company. It's the wrong spot, too risky. You would want to take that money and put it in iFlip the software or into an infinite banking platform so that you can start multiplying that and getting more money to work. Those are much safer, better bets than investing in iFlip company, because iFlip the company, although I don't ever think it will, it could fail. That's obviously not the intention. But it's possible. It is a possibility. Kelly and I both get hit by a bus. We have some key man insurance, but that creates a problem for a lot of people. So those are the kind of things that you want to think about. How risky do you want to be with that money? And then what is your expected rate of return? I tell people we want to expect at the bottom of your pyramid, the bottom of your wealth money rules, you should expect a return equal to or greater than the stock market itself, the actual S&P 500. If you can beat the S&P 500 or do that or better in your foundation over your lifetime, you're going to be very well off.
Amen to that. And Randy, I can already hear the questions from a lot of our listeners. They're going to want to know what the stock market's going to do over the next, year, 90 days or whatnot. But I also know you guys also talk about it once a week. So where could our investor or our listeners go to learn more about you and hear what's going to happen?
Well, a couple of things. We do run every week. We run some form of a live YouTube video where we interact with our customers. One's called the mailbag, where we just answer questions that people put into our chats. 2 is the AI circle. Now, how do you get in touch with all that? How do you get a demo of our software? Learn about it. You guys have a link that's unique to you. I would encourage you to share that with all your listeners and have them make an appointment, and then go get a 30-minute demo. Learn about the software, see if it fits, see if it's something they like. If it is, I would encourage them to partake in what we're doing.
Okay, you've heard it here. We will drop that link in the show notes down below. Randy, thanks again so much for coming on. We always enjoy our conversations. I always learn something new. Any final or parting words?
Nah, just realize the market's not going to be stable for a minute, and that's okay. Make sure your money's in a safe spot, and just make sure you understand what your money's doing. Don't just blindly invest it all over the place.
Okay. Jason, anything from you?
Yeah, my final thoughts are, once again, and as always, I come away from a conversation with you, Randy, smarter and a better individual. So thank you a ton for being on our podcast.
Likewise, and happy to do this anytime.
Okay. Well, we might bring you back once you get that billion. It could be much sooner.
Yeah. That'd be better.
Of course. And one of these times we also need to get the brains, Kelly, on here too. So anyway,
I'll schedule them for you.
That would be great. We'll find a time to make that work. Well, guys, thanks for connecting. Thanks for listening in. If you'd like to connect with us, make sure to hit us up on our Facebook group, Instagram, Twitter, or shoot us an email. All the links are in the show notes down below. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you like the show, give us a 5-star review. It really helps. And remember, mastering your millions all starts with your mind and your team. Make sure they are the best. Catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.